my wrist when I step up on a diamond, 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 diamonds on my wrist when I step up on a
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. It is Monday morning, and we are live from Phoenix, Arizona with the Freight Coach Morning Show. As you guys can see, I got a very special guest for you guys today. And, this is an individual that has not been in the industry forever, but he's living out his American dream right now. And we're here to work with him and have him share his perspective. And before I give an introduction for him, got to give a shout out here to my friends over at VHub. You guys, legitimately, asset reutilization is the wave of the future in freight. Whether you're a broker, an owner operator, or a carrier alike, there are access to equipment that is out there for you in the event of, hell, you're dealing with a market downshift right now, or you're just getting in and all you can do is afford to buy a truck. There are platforms and stuff out there available for you guys to utilize to get some freight moving. Right now, in particular, you guys, and you can see this running around on the ticker on the bottom there. They have round trip trailers available out in Toronto right now that need to go down to Chicago, Illinois. And then from there, you can drop and hook and then go down to Wilmington, Illinois, grab a trailer out of Wilmington and reposition it back up there into Mississauga, Ontario. So again, it's that round trip. I know there's a ton of freight that's out there that runs between the GTA down to Chicago and back up. So now there is a platform for you guys to utilize. Because again, as brokers, what do we know? Everybody needs equipment. That's why they say their asset only is their first objection. This is an opportunity for you to get out there and position yourself for the long term. And then they also have long-term extended rentals available for you right now as well. 53-foot drive-in. They're based out of Toronto right now. But again, long-term, create that drop trailer pool for your customers right now where you can run power only out there as well. And you can build up this network, you guys. We got to get creative when there's market shifts and everything else out there. The freight is still moving and we need to be there to capitalize on that freight. Also, another quick reminder, International Road Check, May 17th through the 19th. Wheel end components are going to be the focal point on that. So get your truck scheduled for that PM right now. Check your stuff out because let's get ahead of it because we can't afford to be shut down right now when we're out there. All right, let's jump in. Got to give some shout outs here. Samantha Bass, good morning. Thank you for joining. Sunny, Orange Shirt Gang, good morning. Scott, the Freight Sensei, he's up. This is a guy you guys need to connect with, Tyler. He's out of he's out of Boise, Idaho, man. They're a solid brokerage out there. I bet you they got some freight for you.
All right.
Jennifer, what's going on? Tyler, introduce yourself, man. Let the world know who Tyler is. Oh, here we go. You froze up a little bit. Tyler's up in the mountains right now in Washington. Good morning, Shannon. I think we're losing him here. But yeah, Tyler, when he gets his stuff back up.
There we
Tyler.
go. I
think
I'm back.
Yeah, your voice is back. There he is.
Okay, we'll give this another shot. But yeah, so I own a company called Blue Transport Group. We officially started operations in February.
No, he's cutting out again. But as we're kind of filling in here, yeah, Tyler's with Blue Transport Group, you guys. He is a owner operator. As you just heard, he just started his business a couple of months back, and he, is out there coming into this industry. And this is, one of those drivers. It's because of the MU flag. That's funny. Somebody's out there talking shit about the Mizzou. I'll let you tell your story. You're telling it better than me. Let's see if this works. It's all right. We're having some technical difficulties out here. But no, you guys, he's out there right now, building up his business. And so Tyler, February is when you got your start?
That's right. Yeah. Started working on the business in October, and then we started in February. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear, man. Yeah, because October
Okay.
is when I initially reached out to you on Instagram, and that's when we started talking, was back in October, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And we were, my wife and I were looking at the industry and very interested in starting a business.
Yeah.
So that's, when we really started digging into things and planning out our making a business plan, figuring out finances, and, trying to determine what what kind of money could be made in the market, and looking at the expenses of owning a truck and the maintenance, et cetera. And really decided that this was going to be for us. And so that's where it really all started, was right about October, and it took us till February to get the truck and actually get rolling on the road. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you for a while now, but I know you were. It was funny because you had posted that video of you out in Minnesota. It was like right in my neck of the woods where I grew up, and it was like it was like 10 below zero or something out there.
Oh man, it was cold. It was a whole nother level of cold that day.
Oh man. So yeah, Tyler, I do, so diesel obviously being what it is right now, I do like a weekly, I just put that out there every single day. The EIA.gov is where the national average is put out there. And it's at 5.6. This is the report last week. The new one will drop today, a little bit later. But yeah, it's 5.16 a gallon. I mean, it's up $2.03. Have you noticed, like, with where you're running at based out of Washington there, is fuel up how much in this, last month or two?
Oh man. Yeah, it's up a little bit. I would say when I look at the fuel, I usually look at the national average, not necessarily Washington, because most of the work that I've been getting has been in the Midwest. So I go out of Washington and I bounce around the Midwest for a couple of weeks. And fuel is generally at least $1 cheaper there than it is in Washington.
Oh, wow.
Per gallon. And so, that's kind of what I look at. And I guess one of the things that to talk about when you talk about fuel, back in October, when I was looking at the national average for diesel price, it was $3.70 a gallon is what I had on my business plan. And I think I got that number from DOF.com or I believe. And now it's, over $5 a gallon. So it's, talk about a major increase in expenses there. It's, really pretty significant to absorb. And we did a lot of shifting on like, okay, on our expenses and our financial planning for our business based on that. So.
No, definitely. And that, that's one of those things, like with fuel being the variable that it is, and it's tough to budget out for it, especially with the spikes that, we occur, because again, it's like the broker, the shipper, the carrier, we don't control fuel prices when it boils down to it. But it is like you're talking about, it's putting that budget out there and that business plan to make those adjustments. Cause you run a Mac. So what are you like, if you're pulling a 44,000 or 42,000 pound load right now, what are you getting? Especially if you're running in the Midwest, what are you getting on an average fuel breakdown per mile right now?
Right about 5.5 miles per gallon. So my truck isn't exactly the most fuel efficient on the road, but I couldn't really be picky when I was purchasing a truck. Yeah. I was really just looking for reliability in this market right now, and something with really low miles. It was my goal. So.
No, definitely. And that, that's the thing is, you got out there and you're running, and, the goal with everything I'm doing here, man, is to keep guys like you running, because that was my dad. That was, I know you have a young family. That was me when I was a kid, and it's just, I want to see this work for you and the 97%. Well, everybody, I want everybody to stay in business at the end of the day, man. And, so there's just some things that we're going to kind of break down here. Tyler's going to help me break down some articles. But before we jump in, I got to let you guys know it is day 16 of the Freight Coach Morning Show. Therefore, it's day 16 of my freight tally of there being an issue with truck parking in this industry, as well as facilities that don't let drivers use the bathroom. And again, I will not stop talking about these issues until there's meaningful change done. I'm not doing this for likes or comments or anything like that. I will continue to bring this up and scream this from the mountaintops until something happens. I will be in touch with my elected officials here in the state of Arizona to ensure they are very aware of this. And I challenge every single one of you watching this right now to be the change that you're looking for. Connect with your local officials about this and make some stuff happen. Because, like, let's be real. With that infrastructure bill that was passed, these local municipalities have millions of dollars to play with. They should be looking into some of these issues. So first article of the day is going to come to from Transport Topics. And this was that truckers respond to plans for apprenticeship pilot program. A newly released summary of public comments on the federal driver apprenticeship pilot program was mixed, with the trucking trade groups generally supporting the program, while many small truckers and independent operators offered a varying criticism and suggestions. The 3-year pilot, expected to get underway in the upcoming months, has been touted as a way to get young drivers behind the wheel to mitigate a nationwide shortage of truck drivers. What, Tyler, you're an owner op, you're a one truck operation. What's your honest opinion on that?
Man, honestly, I'm not completely convinced that there's a driver shortage out there. And I know there's going to be some people that disagree with me there. But,
I agree with you.
I mean, from what I've seen, we have a lot of drivers on on the roads out there, and a lot of people that I talk to that are very interested in the career, and they're very interested in what I've been doing and want to know more. Reading these articles that you sent to me, they're talking about 90% turnover at certain carriers and things like that. I mean, for me, it seems like there's more of a retention issue with carriers than there is a driver shortage.
Yeah.
And maybe some changes there in leadership and how they approach employing drivers would be the best option to stop this turnover and people maybe just staying in the industry or staying with the company longer. I think those are the solutions that need to be looked at.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. Scott, he's got a 53-foot roll-up door van, and I'll connect you to guys together offline so he can help you out there. He's out of Washington though, Scott. But yeah, I think the premise of the apprenticeship, like that pilot program of, hey, let's get people in and excited about the industry, is what's needed. I think, because I'm right there with you, man. I don't think there's a driver shortage. I'm on board with the retention issue, and to take it a step further, we're getting to that point where there will be a driver shortage here eventually, unless we market it to get that younger generation and that next generation of people behind the wheel. And I think that is where the major focal point is. I'm a fan of the framework of it, of getting people behind, in the apprenticeship. But again, I think that there's just a lot of stuff out there that needs to be worked on here, because on the bottom here, Warner Enterprises supports the standard of program evaluation that account for a broad range of factors equal or greater to than road safety standards for drivers 21 years of age or older. Warner looks forward to being actively engaged in the process for the apprenticeship pilot program as it proceeds. It's, and then at the bottom here, it says, let me see here. Let's see. We believe that licensing under 21 for interstate commerce will lead to more crashes, injuries. Yeah. And again, it's like, and then another driver out here says that his dad taught him to drive when he was 16. My dad taught me how to drive when I was like 10, granted, I grew up in the sticks in Wisconsin, so we can get away with it. But yeah, it's the thing. And I think what it is to me, Tyler, is just the fact that there are farms, there's 18-year-olds who rip up and down the freeways in Wisconsin farming. I know that out in Kansas and everywhere else, 18, 19 years old. I think that with the right framework of this is where we could work with it long-term to have a pipeline. But I'm right there with you, man. There's a massive retention issue in this industry. And that'll help us lead into our second article here. And again, that first article, I was trying to cite all my sources, Tyler. So that was from Transport Topics, ttnews.com. And it was Truckers Respond to Plans for the Apprenticeship Program. And again, there's always going to be mixed feedback on a lot of these things. And again, not agreeing on everything can be healthy, contrary to popular belief out there. My opinion isn't always going to be right. But yeah, check it out. So this one, second article is from FreightWaves. Driver turnover driven by different factors depending on tenure and gender. 10th Street analyzed exit survey data to figure out why drivers leave carriers. And it was a pretty informative breakdown. I liked how it was broken down by the tenure of the driver. And so I want to bring this, I'm going to pull this, their first subheader is drivers with less than 1 year experience. I'm going to read this one. And then Tyler, I want your feedback because you're out here. It's drivers who've been behind the wheel for under a year reported a unique set of concerns. Over 15% of these drivers left carriers due to training issues. Something not even 2% of the drivers reported in any other tenure range. This group's second largest area of concern was family issues, again, outpacing drivers in every other tenure category. it makes sense that first year's drivers present with a different set of considerations. These drivers are still learning the industry, going through their initial training and figuring out how to navigate family life while over the road. One of the biggest things carriers overlook with drivers is less than 1 year of experience and their family issues. So you have a young family.
I do.
Yeah, man. So like how old are your kids?
So I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old and then another on the way. So
yeah,
pretty young family.
Pretty young family. So
yeah, I mean, this speaks to me. I mean, being away on the road for several weeks at a time, obviously is very difficult and very different from most people's jobs. Yeah. For me, it was probably a little bit less of a shock to our family. My previous career, I was gone a lot, even when I was just really, really long days, lots of overtime, and working 6 or 7 days a week. So even when I was home, I would just sleep, turn around, and go back to work. So I mean, there was a lot of that going on. So this is a little bit different. I'm on the road for a couple of weeks, but then I come home for a pretty good chunk of time usually too. But I can see how that would be a really big shock to a lot of families, especially being away from your kids for such a period of time. It's just not quite what you think it might be when you get into it, I'm sure. It's probably a little bit harder. But as far as the training, people leaving for training, I can't speak too much on that because I went to the CDL school and I'm self-taught after that. But I could see how people could be frustrated by, I mean, the CDL schools, at least my experience was they are lacking a lot in preparing you for actually being an over-the-road driver and what you're going to experience. They teach you the basics of maneuvering the truck, and that's about it. But there's a lot more to it, the finding the parking, and dealing with the paperwork and all that. And based on some of what I've seen on the road, not to knock other companies and carriers, but I've also seen a lot of unprofessionalism out there with some other companies. Yeah. And I guess I'm not surprised that they would, maybe some of these other companies might just throw a new guy into the truck and expect him to know everything and not really give him any guidance. And so I think maybe that's where some of that comes from.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. And I think that it's back down to that training. It's back down to that, the fully preparedness. But I also think trucking has almost been like a great myth for a long time. Not a lot, unless you were in trucking, you didn't really know anything about it. And these last 2 years really highlighted, and unfortunately, highlighted the good and the bad of the industry. And it also showed, though, that the amount of information that wasn't out there to help individuals be successful from the get-go. And that's the thing, is I think now retention's key, and keeping people around is key, because we can't afford to have any trucks leave the road. And especially when it comes down to something along the lines of training, you'd think a CDL school would have a heavy emphasis on that, considering again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know, man. I just feel like, hey, they train me, or lack thereof could have some implications behind it. But it's you taking that and running with it. This was a good article, though. I did truly like the breakdown on this one of the tenure range and everything else. And again, hey, I got to give credit where credit is due, and there's got to be a lot of credit out here to the breakdown of this. I thought it was very well written, and there was a lot of great information in there on just breaking down. And it's interesting to see, because it's the drivers with more than 15 years of experience, pay, and management were high priorities for male drivers. Female drivers had a broader perspective. They talk more about personal and family issues, as well as relationships with dispatchers. They have a strong tendency to look at the life cycle of the career, where men are less likely to focus on that. And that's the thing, is breaking in those demographics and hearing from both aspects of it as well. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I know what it was like growing up with my dad on the road, but I couldn't imagine if I was again, I'll never be a mother. So I'll never know what that is like to be away from your kids, especially, and that's the thing, is it's I'm just glad that the highlights are there of talking about what drivers go through based on tenure and everything. It's very informative. Check it out. It's at Freightwaves. and driver turnover driven by different factors depending on tenure and gender. Yeah, it was a good article. Last one is also from FreightWaves, and this was put out there last Thursday, but I wanted to kind of save this one, and that it was the trucking bloodbath isn't coming for everyone. What, like, when you hear stuff like that, man, because again, it's like larger carriers are, and frankly, larger brokers, they're immune to a lot of these market shifts. You know what I mean? Like they're immune to a lot of this stuff, and it's one of those situations that I think it is like you having that business plan. I mean, how many drivers have you ran into that don't have a business plan?
Probably the majority.
Yeah. And that, and again, so it's like, how are you taking that from an advocacy standpoint for your fellow driver out there and just showing them that stuff? And, because it's important. Like, I think that for me personally, like I'm 2 years into business for myself. I don't know fucking a lot about, like, I'm figuring it out as I go, like I have a plan, of course, but I think like that education piece of it is because it's like the mega carriers and the mega brokers don't really have to worry about how my bills are going to get paid. Like, again, like I'm saying that they don't think about that. Like, obviously they do, but for you who's just getting started out, like what is over the last 60 days, man, what's your general thoughts?
Obviously the spot rates, which is mostly what I've been, working off, or really all I've been working off, have dropped significantly. But personally, I'm not too concerned. I mean, there's going to be ebbs and flows in every industry, right? And you have to just go into it with your eyes wide open to that, because I mean, it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're going to have lean times. And unfortunately, for guys like me, some of these lean times are going to come more quickly than others. But these are just natural resets and things in the market. I think I think the hugest thing, one of the biggest things that I would advocate for with people getting into the industry, starting a carrier like myself, is, man, make sure that you're financially ready. Make sure that you're not taking out loans that are so outrageous that when you have a couple of lean months that you're not able to pay them. I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey and listening to his podcast and shows and stuff, and cash really is king. My parents' side of the family, they're airline pilots, my grandpa and my mom. And so one of the things that I looked at pretty heavily, because I knew about it, getting into this industry, because I think aviation and trucking is still transportation. A lot of it is pretty similar. But if you look at the pandemic and the airlines that did well and weathered a major crash in their market and people traveling, it was the airlines that paid cash for their airplanes, and they were able to keep on all of their employees and keep paying them even though there wasn't really work for them. And they weathered the storm a lot better than the airlines that took out huge loans for their equipment. And so I think the same thing goes for trucking. Man, don't overextend yourself, and you'll be able to weather these, any kind of issues in the market that might come up. But as far as these articles go, I feel like some of these really just try to strike fear in people. I think they're making out to be a little bit worse than it probably is.
Yeah, it's because there was one thing out there. Again, it was I'm not connected with his, but they took from Andrew Lynch, who's the president of freight brokerage Zipline Logistics, and that he's reached out to his clients to slash his rates. I'd like to know a little bit more substance behind that, because I think that is it just the spot market? Is it contract? Is it going back to him and saying, I just think that there's a lot more to that than that, because it's like, I would highly recommend any company work with your customers in this time and bring the market shift to them instead of after the fact. So that could have been it. And then down there a little bit, it was Steve Urbish. He's a dispatcher working mostly with owner operators who's starting to see rates plummet. They used Philadelphia to Carlisle, PA, and then it was $1,200, and then it's now paying $756. I used to run about 15 loads a day out of Bordentown, New Jersey, which is like 10 miles from Philadelphia. And that lane that they're talking about right there is now back down to what it normally pays. That's what I paid on that lane like 7 years ago. So I think that one's kind of normalized, you know, due to the market kind of calming back down. And again, like, I'm not saying like like there is clearly a market shift that is happening out there. Like, it's very evident and everything, but it's bringing it back down to where it was. Like, I mean, I move more bottled water out of the greater Philadelphia area than I can even fucking comprehend right now. And that's what that rate was back in 15, 16, and 17. So it's kind of brought it back down to where it normally was. And again, like, it's never like, you know, as they're talking about, man, like, rates are going to change, things are going to change. And we need to focus on, all right, so how do you do this? Like, you know, you're talking about Dave Ramsey. So it's like, it's taking that capital right now and paying off your loans faster. It's getting more cash positive with a lot of this, because again, it's like, hey, when fuel prices go up, yeah. So you're running, you know, right now, if it is $5.16 a gallon and you're getting five miles to the gallon, essentially, on that. So your bill, you're probably running about 75 cents a mile right now for fuel. Is that what you have in your budget?
I think it was 80 cents a mile, but
80?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right there.
I went to public school, man. I'm not that. Sure. But yeah, man, that's the thing. So it's like, no, and it is adjusting that. And it's also talking to your brokers. So again, you guys check that article out. I'm not going to go into super in depth about that one. But it was from Freightways about the trucking bloodbath isn't coming for anyone. Again, there's some good points in there, but there's also, I'd like to hear a little bit more in-depth information on some of that stuff. But yeah, man. So I think that, you know, taking that into consideration. So I want to spend the last 5, and we'll go over, man, fuck it, it's my show. I want to talk to you now about how we can help you out in this. So any of these contracted load or any of these spot loads that you're working with brokers on, is it line haul plus fuel, or is it all in rates?
All in rates. That's
okay.
Yeah. All in rates are really all I'm seeing. So
without giving away any names of like shippers and receivers or anything, are they like large facilities that are out there? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I would say about 75% of the facilities are very large. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Based on my experience as a broker here, man, fuel surcharge is added in to that. So like, and this is just for those large RFP shippers, there's a line haul plus fuel on a lot of that stuff. So that might be something for you to look into, is asking about the fuel surcharge, seeing what the fuel surcharge is on that, because that changes the rates out there. Sure. So like, obviously as fuel goes up, the national average, my line as a broker goes up too, because I'm making a little bit more money on fuel. So talk about that stuff. And, furthermore, my friends over at DAT wanted me to share this with you. They pulled the outbound. Now hold on. I'm just figuring this stuff out, man. Hold on. I got to pull up my second screen. I don't know if you can see that or if anybody can see that. Can you see that, Tyler?
Yep. No, I can.
Okay, perfect. So they pulled outbound drive-in spot market out of Seattle, Washington. And I know with you being based out of Washington, this is out of the last 7 days. And this lists the top 25 destinations for you. So like with you're talking about, looks like Kansas City's a good market right now for you to look out for outbound Seattle. With you, do you primarily run Midwest, or have you developed your region that you're going to run?
Primarily Midwest. Yeah.
Primarily Midwest. Okay.
I'm just finding that the rates seem to be so much better that it's more profitable for me to just stay in the Midwest for a little while.
Yeah. And then, so like with reading this, historically speaking, so obviously, as you can see here in Denver, Colorado, it looks like the head haul rate is higher than the national average. And that's primarily because the outbound freight in Denver is historically not good. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but in my experience, outbound Denver was not solid at all. But I remember Kansas being a really good market. And that would be, I think that could be one of those things for you to develop now, and getting your core niche down, Tyler. I think that would be extremely beneficial to look at that stuff, and I'll pull that down. But that's my biggest advice for you right now, is to find out which lanes are the most profitable for you and staying on that and specializing in that stuff, because you can provide, because again, it's like, how do we navigate market shifts? It's like, we have to run with the ebbs and flows of it. As a broker, for the later part of my career, I live by the motto of, I want to overpay you when I don't have to, so you undercharge me when you don't have to. And I think that if you run specific lanes and you're able to find out which ones are the most profitable for you, that's going to build up your consistency for you to get those more direct relationships with shippers or direct relationships with brokers as a whole. And I want the right brokers to reach out to you in these instances, because I don't want to pay attention to the people who are doing the fucking bullshit that they do out there, because that's not the industry. The people who are watching my show, those are the people who are on the ground right now doing the right thing. And I want that. That's what I want you to find out there, man. It's like, because data is key. So it's like, have you identified, like, do you have any fuel programs that you're on right now? Is there any fuel cards that you get a discount?
Yeah, actually, I just switched over to Comdata. I haven't even purchased fuel with them yet, but that's the new card that I'm going with for fuel. I had Love's Express for a while. That's who I'd been using before, but I'm still finding that looks like Comdata is still going to give me a lot better price at the TAs and Petros than Love's was giving me. So, but hey, just kind of learning what's going to be best along the way here and adjusting. So,
absolutely, I think so. Matt Laird, he owns 15 or 17 trucks. Matt, he's out of Oklahoma, and he's saying right now, Seattle to Denver, Denver to Monte Vista, and Monte Vista to Portland is a nice triangle for vented van. I don't know if is yours a vented van, or is it just standard roll up?
Just a standard roll up. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Andrew Teal. Andrew Teal is like one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to freight. He'd be somebody, and he's actually valid CDL. He's active CDL holder, 4th generation truck driver. He's been in the industry for a very long time. His family owns trucks and everything. The benchmarks like DAT may include the fuel. Yeah. So, that's obviously what it is that, that's line haul, and line haul plus fuel is always key in eking out that stuff, man. And that's the hard part of it, is what he says. The hard part is when diesel jumps 15 cents per gallon overnight. So the load you accepted for Wednesday on Monday, it now costs higher because the diesel's moving up fast. So again, it's, that's when you're out there on the spot market, that is the gift and the curse of it, is like, if that spikes in your favor, make that money, but it's also, that's the reality of it. But I would look into that stuff, man. And then with you, how have you identified, is trip planning been key for you? And finding out, like, with fuel prices being what they are and parking, are you identifying a lot of those things to kind of build out a more sustainable operation for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, every trip I book, I'm looking at, like you said, parking, fuel, just what are all my expenses going to be? Is, tolls, to get there. It's, there are certain areas that I've gone into that, like parking's been an issue where it's cost me, $50 in parking for a couple of days. Houston was one of them, where it was just trying to find parking for a couple of days was terrible. So it's just one of those things that I'm really trying to figure out at the moment, and really plan ahead of time for those things. And especially some of these areas that, I've really had pretty good luck with not having to pay for parking, but it really takes a lot of extra planning too. And figuring out where I'm going to stop and where I'm going to buy fuel, and for sure, lots of planning for the trips. Yeah.
No, definitely, man. And that was one thing. So I actually had a James Lewis on my podcast a couple weeks back, and he's a driver, long time, and he was talking about trip planning and everything else out there, on like little tips and tricks on what he advises drivers on. And, a lot of it is like, hey, maybe shutting down, especially with you being an independent, man, you shutting down outside of Houston that has a higher probability of you getting it and then starting your clock early and running through and everything else. And, man, there's a lot of very real things that can happen. And I think that learning an industry when it isn't easy is very beneficial for guys and girls out there, guys like you, especially, man, who are in this for the long term and seeing the realities of what it is, but also seeing the importance of finding dedicated lanes to run that are, because again, like when you hear spot market and contracted freight, I don't have exact percentages, but that's not 100% of the loads that are moving. because the data that's reported, again, I don't know where any of this data comes from, but I know there are a lot of shippers out there who don't report their data. Like I know that there's stuff out there that you can find that just because it might be listed on a certain report, it doesn't mean that that's what the price is going to be. If you called them direct and said, hey, listen, where are you based out of in Washington again? Yakima area?
Just north of Yakima. It's called Cle Elum. So yeah, it's right in between Yakima, Wenatchee, and Seattle. So
yeah. So,
right
that's the thing is it's like, if you reached out to some of these shippers who are in your area and let them know like, hey, these are the lanes that I'm coming for. All right. I want to move Seattle to Kansas City. And then you could work on more consistent pricing with them and going to them direct. And, it is, man. And then maybe that is having a broker find you get a reload to head back up to the Pacific Northwest and stuff. I think that it is identifying those most profitable lanes for you right now and really staying niche, man. Cause like, that's where in my opinion, niches are in the riches, or riches are in the niches, in this industry, and it's like, man, if your niche is going to be, what's the commodity that you've hauled the most?
Oh man, I couldn't even tell you. It's been such a mix. Yeah, such a mix.
For sure. But I think like you identifying the lanes that you want to run now, because like my dad is an owner op, man. He ran Minneapolis to the Bronx for like 35 years. And that's really all he did. And, so it's like, again, it's like playing that long-term thing, which it sounds like, obviously, man, you got a business plan, what you're doing, you have it down. It's just, identifying and navigating through the ebbs and the flows of this. Let's see, Andrew, too, the entire U.S. has been so hot for 2 years. It didn't matter where you headed. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's very accurate. And yeah, man. So I'm going to close that out. And I know we went a couple minutes over here, but again, I wanted people to hear from you. You're out there living your American dream, man. And I'm doing the same thing with what I'm doing right now. And I want to use my network and all the information I have at my disposal to keep you and the 97% of the small carriers on the road, man. And there are resources out there. There are people out there that want to see you win. And, anybody out there who's watching this live right now or in the future, connect with Tyler. What's your Instagram handle? Is it Blue Transport Group?
Yep. At Blue Transport Group.
Yeah. Connect with Tyler out there. If you are real deal. All right. If you're going to come at him with fucking dollar a mile shit, don't at all. And then again, man, my friends at DAT provided that map out there. And again, shout out to my friends over at VHub. You guys reach out to my man, Xavier Campos. He is he's my point of contact over there. Again, they got that round trip trailers from Toronto down to Chicago, Wilmington, Illinois, back up to Mississauga. Keep that rolling. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your perspective as somebody who's living out your American dream, man, for the last 60 days and going to keep you moving for the next 60 years. That's my, well, maybe not 60 years. It'd be like 100 at that point, but you know what I mean, man. We're here me and my network are here to work with you and keep you profitable, man. So if you need anything from me at all, you got my information. I'm here to help in any way, man.
Hey, thanks for having me and keep up the good work. Love listening to you.
Absolutely. And all right, everybody, we'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central to break down 3 industry headlines. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys all so much, and we'll be talking to you guys tomorrow. And I got a little bit of